Okay, welcome to Universal God Message of Peace. And this is our wonderful weekly Abrahamic dialogue. And I'm Lee Weissman, and this is Dr. Khalid Zaheer. And we are talking today about what is religious guidance and how do you get it? And today I get to sit back and enjoy myself and watch and ask questions. So I'm going to give the floor over to Dr. Zaheer.
Thank you very much.
Welcome.
I begin in the name of the God whose mercy is profound, whose kindness is forever. Um, I must admit I have chosen this topic, so that is why I'm the one who's
Mhm.
making a beginning. Uh, I have to first uh, clarify and define what is religious guidance. Uh, what I understand is that God has His plan uh, about this life that we are living, and that plan He has mentioned in his religious messages. Now, the plan is explaining the reason why he created this life of ours. Uh, let's say his grand scheme is what his religious message talks about. I keep saying that this life is a puzzle, and God's message promises to solve that puzzle or solve it to an extent that is important, essential for us. Uh, so, when I say religious guidance, what I mean by it is that an individual is able to understand uh, that plan of the Almighty and not just understands it, but also feels inclined to adjust himself accordingly. Uh, Understanding obviously is not just an intellectual exercise, it indeed is, to begin with, primarily an intellectual exercise, but it really needs to be what we say internalized. In order for that plan to get internalized, um, you need to understand it and understand it properly and feel that it's making sense. Uh, and obviously, a part of the plan, probably the more important part of the plan, has to do with us directly. It is requiring us to think, understand, behave in a certain way. So, a religiously guided person uh, understands that plan and also is inclined to, feels comfortable with following that plan in his life. When I say a person understands the Almighty's plan and he's inclined to follow it, I don't mean, and probably it can never be possible to do it in a perfect way, except in the case of the prophets. So it is an inclination after an understanding, which is happening all the time. It's an ongoing process. So you keep understanding that plan of the Almighty. You keep solving that puzzle, and as you keep going on doing it, you also feel that you are behaving according to what the expectations are. Now, some people might find that what I'm going to say now is a bit irrelevant uh, for the subject, and I'm not going to explain how it is relevant, but I'm still going to say what I'm about to say. I have a feeling that it is relevant. Uh, you know, when I see myself as a Muslim vis-a-vis people belonging to other faiths, religions, and in actual fact, within Muslims, when I look at people who have other points of views and sects, how how do I look at them? My understanding is that there are only three ways a religious person can look at other religious people who are somewhat different from him. Uh, One possible position could be the position of an inclusivist, which is what I think my position is. And I'm convinced that that's what the position should be. I believe and think that my understanding is correct, but I also believe that others also have a right to feel comfortable with their understanding. And what is more important is that while I have a I entertain a hope that I'm going to receive the mercy of the Almighty in the next life, uh, I have the same feeling for others too. There could be two other positions which I believe I am not comfortable with. One position is the position of an exclusivist. A religious exclusivist is a person who says that my understanding of religion, my faith is correct, and all others are wrong and doomed. I don't take that position, although I know that many Muslims have that understanding. Many Jews have that understanding. Many Christians have that understanding. But I have a very good reason to believe that that is not what is correct. And I feel comfortable being a religious inclusivist. The other position is the position of a religious pluralist who says that all religions, and when I say all, actually it means all across the board, all religious faiths are equally correct and they all are different ways of leading to the same God, to the same truth. I I don't understand it. And I have reasons to believe that this position is also not acceptable to me. Uh, Now, I also feel that the religious approach at the time of the prophets, when they were there physically present, the right position was an exclusivist position. Uh, but as and when they leave this world, and the religious text and religious understanding is in the hands of people who are not prophets and perfect, uh, you know, the position that can only be justified is that of religious inclusivism. And I'll explain it later why I hold that position. But now I come to the second part of the title of today's topic: how to get uh, religious guidance. Uh, my answer is there is only one way of getting it: to show your keenness to such a level that you become desperate for it. You show to God that you really want to know. Uh, Learning about the truth of religious guidance becomes your top priority. Um, Whatever it takes to know what the truth is what the person is willing to do. So it's deep, strong willingness, inclination, uh, that is what is needed. And I have a I have a feeling, I very strongly believe that no matter who the person is, no matter where he lives, what religious background he belongs to, if he shows this sincere keenness, this desperation for him to know the truth of religious uh, message and is wants to be religiously guided, the Almighty is going to make arrangements for him to be guided. Uh, However, there are two more conditions. Um, Obviously, you know, keenness is the most significant. If you're not keen enough, you won't get it because you don't deserve it. Because what you are looking for, if you don't realize, it's the most important asset that one can get in life. It's the most important discovery that you can have in life. If you don't have that realization, I'm not saying that you're going to be misguided, but the kind of religious guidance I'm talking about, you won't get it. Because I mean, there is a there is a price tag to everything that's there in this world. And that price attached to different, let's say, products have got to do with the value that they have, the kind of promise that they offer. So this is the product or the service of the the highest value. So I mean, unless we give it the kind of importance that it deserves, we won't get it. So that's by far the most important condition. However, there are two more conditions, which I believe honestly, if somebody is desperate to know what the true religious guidance is, he or she will already have fulfilled it. Because this desperation doesn't come without these
Mm.
other two conditions also
Mhm.
uh, being there in the individual. The first of the two is intellectual honesty. The person should be absolutely honest in the way he thinks. He should have no prejudices, no biases, no strings attached, no enemies. These are the two uh, important reasons why people are not intellectually honest. It's either that you are so strongly emotionally attached to a certain ideology, a narrative, or an individual or a place for various reasons. I mean, it could be the way you have been brought up, it could be the way some people, some writings have impressed you, but you become so overwhelmed, so impressed, influenced by something that if the truth is shown to you, you're not interested. You're biased. You're already biased. So a biased person would say that, look here, you know, my father cannot be wrong. And therefore, if you have any truth, make sure that this truth is what my father accepts. The truth should submit to my father.
Right.
But this is not going to enable the individual to find the truth of religious guidance. So that's one thing. And the other is that I have enemies. And or I look down upon some people. I'm arrogant. And I say to myself that look here, this man, if he speaks, I'm not going to listen to him. I just don't like him. What is the reason? Whatever be the reason, you know, I don't like his face, I don't like his color, I don't like his family, whatever. But I'm not interested in what he's saying. So then religious guidance will not show up. It's not going to uh, impress you for you to be able to accept it. Uh, Obviously, there are certain biases which are natural. We are all born and brought up with biases. But that is what an honest person, intellectually honest person, has to fight against. Uh, we are all biased, but what is important is that we all know that we are biased. And that knowledge, that understanding and feeling should never be allowed to disappear. That I don't like a few people, and I know that this is a problem in me, and therefore I have to fight against it. Uh, the second condition, or I should say the third condition, keenness is one, intellectual honesty is the other, and the third is moral uprightness. Uh, no morally corrupt person can get guided. There's no chance. Uh, it seems as if that guidance, although is understood intellectually, but it gets internalized by the individual um, through a process which ultimately affects his her heart feelings. Now, it seems that the Almighty has so arranged the design of our personalities that if you are a liar, if you are a cheat, no matter how impressive and understanding from God, how well it's presented, uh, it can't get into you. It just can't. There would be barriers erected. So the person has to be morally upright. Uh, and if a person who is already religiously guided, uh, he or she becomes morally corrupt, then that guidance, the light of that guidance would begin to disappear. Now, one might ask, is it possible that a person who is religiously guided can become morally corrupt? Well, my answer is yes, it can happen. Why can it happen? Because you know life, the way it has been designed, is a test wherein we are always being given to confront different situations, different challenges. Uh, and even a person who is apparently religiously guided, his test is not over so long as he's living in this life. So he comes across various challenges, various temptations. And the reason is, it seems, the reason from what I understand, the design of the Almighty is that He would want the person to get further elevated in his ranks, in his uh, pursuit for truth and the Almighty's closeness. But the same very opportunity has a flip side as well, because it's a test which, if one goes through properly, the person becomes eligible for a higher level of, call it spiritual excellence or
Mm.
excellence of religious guidance. It has the other possibility as well, that the person does not, you know, go through the exercise, go through the challenge of the trial properly. He can actually slip and fall. Uh, and that really means that, the person would begin to degenerate morally, and the guidance would go. So it's an ongoing process. It starts from keenness, and then it goes on to enable the person to achieve higher levels, but it can be lost as well. Finally, I just want to say I thought it was one, but two things. What it I'm saying is that I find in the Quran this mention that those who believe and do good deeds, they are going to be successful in the next life. They are the ones whom the Almighty uh, promises His mercy, His kindness. Uh, I have started paraphrasing these two expectations by mentioning those who are intellectually honest and those who are morally upright. They are promised by the Almighty success of the next life. So, Iman or faith or belief, I paraphrase as intellectual honesty, and Amal Saleh, good deeds, I paraphrase as moral uprightness. And what the last thing related to this, what I want to say is that when, as I said earlier in my the earlier part of my presentation, that if a prophet of God is physically present himself, then all intellectually honest and morally upright people, they converge, they get attracted towards him. Like like a magnet, he is able to attract all pure iron. There is no way that they're going to be drawn away. And there is no chance that a dishonest person, intellectually dishonest, arrogant, biased person, and a morally degenerated person would ever come genuinely close to a prophet. I mean, they can be hypocrites and be close to him, apparently, but they can't be attracted. But this facility, or call it this luxury, of a prophet of God being present amongst people is not always there. And we don't have that facility now. So the trial is still going on. And now the same criteria which the Almighty has set forth for salvation, for success in His eyes, they need to be paraphrased. Uh, and it all depends on what circumstances a person faces. The ultimate result is going to be based on the individual's uh, intellectual honesty and moral uprightness. That's all from me now. For
Okay. Wow. That's quite a lot. Um, it's very interesting. It's interesting to talk about the keenness, and I wonder, I wonder, I think that some people would love to be, I think some people would love to want, you know, but they find it hard to really want because one of the things that um, guidance guarantees that you're going to change, right? There is no such thing as guidance without change. And if you're afraid, if you're afraid of change, that can be a huge obstacle, right? To your desire, I think that there's a kind of uh one of the obstacles, I guess maybe this is a different topic, what are the obstacles? But one of the obstacles I think is a fear, a fear of change, a fear of, being having to ask from ourselves something that we're not ready to give yet. Um, and but without that, you're right. I think that opens the door to the guidance if you're asking for it, right? You can't get it unless you ask for it. Um, Also very, very interesting to me, I was thinking you're talking about intellectual honesty. So the word kofir in Hebrew, right, is related to kufar, right, in Arabic. And what it means literally is somebody who denies something that they know is true, right?
Wow.
Yes. Somebody who denies something so it's literally intellectual dishonesty. It's literally intellectual dishonesty. It's a very specific, you know, it's not it's not just a person who it's not just a person who denies truth. That's also true. But a person who denies truth with the knowledge that it's truth. Now, a person could be ignorant, right? The person could be ignorant. Maybe they don't know. Maybe that's an entirely different thing. But this is, and I think that that intellectual honesty is so important. And obviously, you know, we have the things we defend, we have the things we defend against. And when you're in either one of those situations, right, the truth goes out the truth goes out the window, right? The moment it's about being right, whether it's about being right for your team or whether it's being right against the other team, then truth now becomes entirely unimportant. And the guidance, even if you got it, it would bounce off of you, right? It would just kind of bounces off of you. And lastly, your thought, I think somebody said this to me very recently, and I and we were talking about kind of the moral qualities of teachers and they said, well, listen, says you're never going to serve a banquet in a toilet bowl, right? And he says, I don't care how clean the toilet bowl is, okay? I don't care how clean it looks. I don't care how much you say you scrubbed it, right? But you're not going to serve it in the toilet bowl, right? There has to be for a beautiful banquet, you need a nice vessel. You need a nice plate. You need something to hold it. And the thing that holds guidance is your behavior, right? And the thing that drives it away is also your behavior. And there's a kind of remarkable story. I'll just tell it because it's interesting. It's a remarkable story about one of the rabbis in the first century, and he became a heretic. He gave up on religion. That's a long story why, but he had a big disappointment, and out of that disappointment, he just gave up on everything. And he was a very big teacher, a very, very, very big teacher. And one of his former students, still wanted to ask him a question, right? Still wanted to ask him a question because he was such a great scholar. You know, he figured, okay, so I can still ask him the question. And he and he's riding on horseback. The teacher is riding on horseback, and the student is chasing him, and it's on Shabbat, right? And you're not allowed to ride on horses on Shabbat. And he asks him, he says, "How far are you allowed? How far are you allowed to go on Shabbat?" And he says, "Up to here. You go back." So the whole question comes up. He says, "Are you allowed, right? Are you allowed to ask questions of somebody who is really of bad character, right? Let's say they have knowledge. Let's say they know a lot, right? It's very possible, right? They know a lot. They've read a lot of books. They know a lot of answers, right? But you know that their character is not so good. Can you ask them questions?" And the ultimate answer is no. The ultimate answer is no, because it's going to be tainted, right? It's going to be tainted with that behavior. And so that's why I guess it's also like really, maybe I'll talk about that a little bit, next week. It's like, okay, so we often have lots of options as to where we get our guidance from, and what are the kind of like practical, like practically speaking. Okay, so we live in a world of information. So where do we get our information? Where do we get our guidance from? And and how do we make ourselves, ready for that? Um, and is there a way to make ourselves more keen, right? Is there a way for us to develop that willingness and desire, you know? you know, to make ourselves thirsty for knowledge, not just, not just to want it like we want everything else, right? We want this, we want that, we want this, but as you say, right, as something to know its precious value, right? If we think it's something, if we think it's just another thing, like all the other things we learn, right? That's one thing. But if we think that it's precious and that we're searching for diamonds, okay? If I know that there are diamonds right behind me, right in that couch, I'll be digging up that couch. Okay. So we have to know that these things are so valuable. So next week we'll start up again, and I'll come back with back with more next week. And
Excellent. Yes, and I'll be looking forward to it. I'll
I
be,
will look forward to it too. And thank you
yeah.
so much. Thank you so
Thank you.
much, Dr.
Thank you.
Zaheer, and have a beautiful day and beautiful week.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Bye bye.